So as some of you may know, I might like video games and I might like superheroes, you know, just a little bit. I don't really understand what might give you that idea, but it might be true. I wanted to give you guys some insight into some other superhero video games that I've personally really enjoyed. And I've got a list here that's in a little bit of a worst to best type order. We've got a 10. This is a top 10 list, guys. We're doing a top 10 list. And this video idea was spurred on from me collecting some really classic video games that I played when I was younger, and I really want to share the love and, you know, maybe bring these to some people's attention that didn't know they existed and may be interested in playing them. Now I want to make it clear that this list is specifically about underrated video games, so there's going to be a shit ton of really good superhero video games that aren't on this list because they're probably too well known and I didn't feel the need to bring eyes to them. So without any further ado, let's jump right into it, boys. If you like superhero video games, you've probably played either Injustice or Injustice 2. They're very classic fighting games at this point. Think basically Mortal Kombat but with DC characters. And the way that this game actually kind of came to be is from a much earlier collaboration between DC and NetherRealm. I'm talking, of course, about Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe. And if you haven't played it, I don't know what to tell you. Go try it. It's fucking something else. It's not as good as Injustice, but goddamn, I thought the story of this game was so incredible, of the worlds literally combining and becoming one. I was like, oh, this is next level. But really, it was just like another shitty fighting game plot. Fighting game plots are really hard to do good. Injustice really knocked it out of the water. But yeah, if you've played Mortal Kombat and Injustice to death and you wanted a little more of a slower experience than Injustice is, try it out. Maybe you'll find some enjoyment out of it like I did. But it is very dated nowadays, I gotta admit. Now I know I said underrated, and this next game does not classify as that at all, but I think it's worth noting because a lot of people might just hand wave it as a little tiny baby game, and it is not that. It is something else entirely. And of course, I'm talking about the Lego, Marvel, and DC games. Lego Batman, Lego Marvel, both of those phenomenal superhero games, no joke. The first Lego Batman is a little rough in comparison, but 2 and 3 are much more open worldy, and the Marvel games are also open worldy, and you can just run around fucking like it's Grand Theft Auto but with Lego characters. It's crazy. Marvel's Avengers, Lego, we don't talk about that one. That one doesn't exist. But what the Lego games can do is have such a crazy huge roster and tell really interesting original stories, and you know, be family friendly, of course, so you can play them with literally anybody. If you want to get anybody into gaming, I cannot recommend a Lego game more. They are phenomenal for that. I want to make it very clear that this Lego coffee mug and these Lego superheroes on this Lego coffee mug have nothing to do with me recommending the Lego games. I just kind of like them. They're good games apart from being Lego related. This is literally just a coincidence, I swear. Now next up is a classic that if you haven't played, go play right now. Just go play it. Not that I'm telling you to emulate it, but emulators exist, and if you own the disc, it's legal to do so. So make sure you own the game, but find a way to play it. It's worth your time, but don't emulate it. But I am, of course, talking about the successor to those really good old X-Men games, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2, and even 3. All of them are pretty fucking good. The first one will forever have an amazing place in my heart, simply because that kind of dialogue system of having the characters that are relevant to the characters that you're fighting, the villains that you're fighting, that had been incredibly unheard of for me, and I felt like I was interacting with a world in a way that I had not done before, and it blew my little child mind wide open. And the second game has an interesting take on the Civil War plotline, so I actually super recommend that one as well. That one's really interesting. And the third one is really pretty, and a little watered down, but still good. Still a good game. So if you like Marvel, definitely check out Ultimate Alliance, because they have huge rosters, and they have really interesting stories, and they're great fucking games. This one is a bit of an interesting pick for me, because I played maybe 50 hours of this game, which is not enough to get everything out of what it is, which is an MMO. Of course, I'm talking about DCU Online here. But that game has an amazing character creation system. It's incredibly fun to make characters in. And the combat, especially for an MMO, really hooked me, which has never fucking happened in an MMO before. So I got really sucked in for like a couple days straight. And then I hit late game and I was like, not as interested. And there were some monetization things that I didn't love about it, so I stopped playing because I didn't think it'd be good for my wallet. But really good game, and I recommend you at least play through it a little bit and make a character, because for me that's the most fun process. It's really fucking cool. Now in a similar vein, Marvel has tried to do an MMO type game before before as well, but they made the combat a little more similar to like a Diablo game, an ARPG, which I think worked out really well for that. And that game had an incredibly loyal fan base, and that game was really kept up until like a couple years ago when they just pulled the plug on it entirely, and that's a big shame. I wish I could keep playing that game. This is a good old-fashioned RIP to Marvel Heroes. That game was phenomenal. Now, we all know how great Spider-Man 2 is, and Spider-Man PS4 is a great fucking successor to that game. It makes it just way better in every way. But nobody really talks about Spider-Man 3 as much, and that's because it's just not as good. It's just not. The amount of shit to do in the open world isn't there. It's just more missions and side missions, and that's about it. And frankly, the swinging isn't as good, which is mind-blowing for a newer game. You'd think it would be better, not quite. But if you haven't played it, it is super worth it, and the black suit mechanic is pretty freaking good, and who doesn't like this shit? It's pretty cool. And I believe you could play as Harry Osborn. That shit was fucking crazy. Flying around, hell yeah, that was cool. That was so cool. But speaking of Spider-Man games, I have a couple here that might interest you if you like Spider-Man 2 at all. Of course, we have Ultimate Spider-Man, which feels very much like a spiritual successor to Spider-Man 2, but with much more of like a traditional Marvel Universe vibe to it. There are characters from the comic books like Johnny Storm. And in a similar note, Web of Shadows, also incredible video game. With characters like Luke Cage and Wolverine, it's a fucking great game. And this game also has a black suit mechanic that is probably better than Spider-Man 3's by like a long shot. It's really fucking fun. And this game has skill trees and side quests, and it's so good. This game is way fucking underrated. If you haven't played Web of Shadows and you like Spider-Man games, I cannot recommend it enough. Next up, we've got a less traditional superhero game. This one might throw a couple people off. You might be like, what the fuck, that's not a superhero game. But I can guarantee you it is. Of course, I'm talking about Saints Row the 4th. That's not what it's called. It's called Saints Row 4. The Saints Row franchise went from a traditional GTA knockoff, life of a gangbanger type game to a fucking crazy alien simulation superhero fantasy game that blew me away. And if you like the first two Saints Row games, because the third one is of course trash, this game will still have something for you. It references those first two installments a whole bunch, and they have this crazy cool flashback mechanic that is just, it's really fun. They do a lot that is incredible, especially for a Saints Row game, and even for a superhero game. Like, man, I have not had a game let me play as like a speedster and be that good ever. It feels so fun to run around in that game. The movement is incredible. There's no reason for cars to be in that game because you're never going to use one to get around. It's just not going to happen. Now, our next game holds a very special place in my cold dead heart, and that game is of course Marvel Nemesis Rise of the Imperfects. Think DCU versus Mortal Kombat, but actually fucking incredible. Like, this game blows me away even today. It is so fun. This is what superhero fighting games really should be, except for Injustice. Injustice is like a valid one as well, I guess. But in Marvel Nemesis, they do this thing where they tell a story and they give you a single player campaign that you can run around in actual levels instead of just fighting against other fighting game characters. You can fight actual minions and run around and just live a superhero fantasy in a way that fighting games normally don't allow you to do. And their weird gimmick of getting the characters to fight each other, I just find really charming and I really love. And I'm gonna say that about a lot of these games, that I find their flaws charming, but it's true, I just do. I think it's a campy, adorable way of getting your characters to fight against each other. And of course, the actual gameplay is like really fun. The superpower mechanic of where you activate your superpower by pressing a button and then you go ham, that shit is so cool. Play this fucking game. Captain America Super Soldier. This game is still incredible to this day and it holds up, and if you haven't played it, go fucking play it. Not this version, the Wii version kind of fucking blows. But when I played this on an Xbox, oh my god, this game is so good. I feel like this game inspired the Batman Arkham games to a T. The combat is almost identical, but you are Captain America and you can deflect bullets with your shield if you time it right, and that is just so fucking cool. And it's inspired by the MCU, so you get a look at Howard Stark, Peggy Carter, Bucky, Cap. Of course, none of it's canon, but it's a neat little game and it's really fucking fun. And if you haven't played it, seriously do. If you like Batman Arkham at all, you will like this game. I think it holds up pretty well nowadays even. It's like if you took Batman Arkham and combined it with a much more traditional platformer, but those elements didn't water it down in any way, they just kind of made it charming, and that's really awesome. I really love this game. No cap. play the fuck out of it. It was one of the first games that I almost 100%ed as a kid, but of course, I've never done that until my adulthood, because being a kid is fucking stupid. Now, I'm going to give you a moment here to think about what number 1 could possibly be, because I almost guarantee you're going to get it wrong, unless you happen to know me personally, because I've been talking about it recently. It's Marvel's Avengers, ayo, no, I'm kidding. It's not that. The actual number 1 game that I recommend to you to play right now, if you own a PC at all, because the game is free, is called Undefeated. Undefeated is this super charming little Superman-esque game, but obviously not Superman because it's not licensed, where you play as this invincible superhero and protect a city from supervillains. And because you are literally invincible and cannot take damage, your health bar is the world's health bar. You have to keep the city from losing too many people or you fail. And this idea truly blows me away. It's incredible. Why do we not have a AAA superhero game with this mechanic? It's so fucking genius. And did I mention it's free? Like, go play it. It's good. It's got this really cute little like flash Easter egg where you can stand in this electricity for an amount of time and get super speed. It's so cool. I could just fly around and run around this city for hours and not even care. Like, it's just fucking cool to move around in. And that's made by one guy. Like, that's crazy. Of course the game has problems because it is made by one guy, but if you just let yourself enjoy it for what it is and play it for a little bit, you'll see the true potential that a game like this could have, and it's really inspiring for me to see that come from one guy. And if we could get him to back like an actual Flash or Superman game, it would be fucking phenomenal. Maybe subscribe, because like 90% of the people that watch my shit aren't subscribed. It's kind of fucking weird. Tell me what you guys think about my list and about that new Red Room event in the comments down below. If you guys got any questions for me, please leave them. I'd love to answer them. And maybe follow me on other platforms. I'd appreciate that a whole lot. It'd be really cute. You'd be a really handsome lad. And I'll talk to you guys in the next video, whatever it might be. Cheers, boys. Here's a little clinky from my Lego Boys cup to you. Have a good one.